All right, thank you, you. I hope the mic works well. So first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Some introduction about myself. I'm working for Syncreon for about 2 years now, and before that, I've been working for TNT in global distribution solutions. I really get my energy from innovation and bringing new solutions to our customers. It's only going to be 2 slides for me, so very short. One slide about Syncreon, and the other one is about introducing this solution to yourselves. So first, something about Syncreon. We provide customized solutions and outsourced, so really an asset-light organization. We have about 1 billion revenues, 13,000 employees, and 1.5 million square meters in warehouse space. The goal for Syncreon in 2021 is to double that revenue, so we're well on track. Core services, I'm not going to bore you with it. It's standard logistics services, and we try to focus on customized solutions. Some of our key customers, we have 2 vertical markets. One is in the automotive and one is the tech. The tech also includes industrial and renewable energy. So why are we here? First of all, the subject that Cresten is going to present is very dear to us, and we feel we can differentiate ourselves in the market. It's also about RFQ processes. RFQ processes a lot of times about the price of the warehouse and of the solution. Sustainability is not really a part of it. It's also being, what is the customer willing to pay? We noticed that customers are willing to pay more once we drive and discuss sustainability with them. Syncreon is not really a well-known company. The marketing effort is being increased a lot. And we also need to, if we want to do 2 billion in 4 years' time, we really have put a focus that we want to be the industry leader in sustainable logistics. So there will be a huge effort from our side by being a leader for green logistics. The reason why we came to this subject is we were in a tender process with Siemens Gamesa, and we felt that, hey, now we win some business, it's also good to do some reciprocity and say, how can we help other customers? So together with Siemens Gamesa, we have been reaching out to other customers and see how we can deliver extra value for their customers, but also address their own footprint. All of you in the industry have very specific targets to reduce your emissions, and by working together, it will definitely help us. It's also about the customer journey and continuous improvement. The customer improvement is really about continuous improvement. It's about the Syncreon way and how we do business. And Cresten will present that on how he sees that going forward. So this is my part of it. So Cresten, good luck, and we'll speak soon.
Good luck.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be speaking here. Hope now this sound is okay. Good. What I'll be speaking about is really delivering sustainable innovation to customers. I think there have been plenty of insightful presentations already today, so thank you all for that. And I feel seriously honored to be speaking of such a distinguished panel that we have gathered here. How are we going to deliver the presentation today? First of all, really about what is the expectation to us as Chief Supply Chain Officers. What is expected from us beyond the operational performance? I will follow up with a small personal story about understanding value. Thereafter, I'll quickly touch only of the reality of climate change, and then we'll go about the topic of beyond profits, companies with purpose. And lastly, we really spent the majority of the time today to talk about the solution that we have implemented here. Let's quickly go about what is expected from us as supply chain executives. There's a number of factors involved. There's some that we need to have, and I've chosen to explain this along the criteria, or the continuum in this case, of what Frederick Herzberg developed as the theory of motivation. this applied to our business, I mean, there are hygiene factors that we need to have in place in order for us to be accepted as supply chain, for us to be perceived as performing. And there are factors that we can deliver, where we can deliver additional value that will motivate. How I see this overall is really that the topics that all of us need to cover: operational performance, cost. We need to have a lean organization, an agile organization. They are the topics that go more in terms of going beyond global value sourcing, outsourcing, offshoring, all the topics that we as industry leaders work with. Going beyond that, with right now as a very prominent topic, the digitalization. And then there's the one that I would like to talk to you about today, one that we are very sincere about, and one where I think we have a solution that many of us in the industry, as well as in the logistics sector, can profit from, which is sustainable operations. But first of all, as I said before, let me tell a brief insight about myself and a story from which I learned. Well, first of all, as was introduced briefly, I'm head of supply chain towers for the region North Europe and Middle East. Besides that, I graduated this year from IE Business School, a hardcore business school, and Brown University, which was a dual program focused on as well liberal arts and humanities that really shaped my way of thinking. Privately, what I really do love and what I enjoy is being out in the mountains, is the sports in general, but especially endurance sports. What I would like to tell you as the story is the story of my running career. I started running in 2004. Actually, I did win my first race. It was a short distance race, or short and long, depending on how you feel about it. It was a 14-kilometer race that I actually did win. It was a lot of fun for me. I continued the running for a long time on a sustainable level, but then I started significantly increasing this. What you can see is I finished my first marathon, 42 kilometers. It was a success, it was fun. The year after, I went beyond that. I took that out in the mountains. I did go for a 65-kilometer race out in the mountains, and I took it to the more extreme. Here you can see a picture of myself at the finish line of an 82-kilometer race in the mountains, where I finished in a bit less than 12 hours of running. That, in a way, shaped a lot of my thinking, especially realizing thereafter. There was something, you can see, I had to stop running. It came as an event because there was one factor I ignored for a long time, which was the days I was in pain. I ignored that factor for a very long time. What is the lesson I learned from it? You really need to focus on understanding the values of yourself as well as the values of your customers. And you need to find something that is sustainably delivering value to you as an individual or to your customers. This is why the topic of climate change is very dear to my heart. It is a reality that all of us face. There is the data trend. It is a curve that is very similar to the one that I showed on the previous slide, which most of us are familiar with. We do see the weather anomalies increasing. Insurance premiums increase with about 4%, so above the general inflation rates. I think as well some of the individuals who came here to this conference couldn't fly here because of hurricanes, where never have been hurricanes before. The more long-term, still very much discussed and debated one is the one I show here to the right, which is about what are the long-term effects. It's not yet clear, but there are predictions that the sea levels will rise and that it will force some of us as companies, as individuals, to relocate. I think we are right now here in this spot, so we are safe from this position, but the other data, what it shows here is that quite a portion of the Netherlands might need to relocate. But what do business leaders do from it? In general, business leaders, and here the number presented, 87% of the business leaders do believe that companies that have a purpose beyond profits will deliver more value. Value in what sense? Value for shareholders, for customers, as well as for employees. But that's a belief that us as executives have, and that is out in the industry. But how is that supported by research? Let me highlight the three areas. First of all, about the shareholders. There is a research study from the National Bureau of Economic Research, a US famous and well perceived US institution that clearly shows that companies that have sustainability on their agenda outperform their peers. The number is 78% of outperformance there. In terms of the customers, a very interesting study conducted by the Harvard Business Review shows that 2/3 of customers do feel the responsibility to buy sustainable products, to buy sustainable solutions. Just to be clear, this study was done more on a B2C environment. Nevertheless, I do realize that more and more business leaders and supply chain executives do feel the same. Another interesting factor is about really the employee engagement. What's the impact on employees? And that's where a McKinsey study has shown that by cross-functional nature, sustainability brings together different organizations, different part of the business, and it provides additional motivation to the employees. So in very easy words, I mean, it does increase productivity of your workforce. But let's look at some industry players. What do the industry players do? I chose to pick the example of Siemens, a company that I used to work for in the past before the carve-out. And just to take this specific example, Siemens pledged in 2015 to reduce its carbon emissions down to 0 by year 2030, with an interim target of going 50% down by 2020. And I can share with you, and it's out as well in the reports, that progress is well underway. There are many other organizations that do have the same intentions. Many of the industry players as well have gathered in what is called the Science-Based Targets Initiative. So companies that did pledge to specific targets in terms of what they want to contribute in terms of climate action. Those are companies such as IKEA, Unilever, and many other leaders in the respective industries. Just to pick one specific example of Walmart, Walmart has set a target to reduce carbon emissions by 18% by 2025, and up to 2030 to save 1 billion tons of CO2 emissions. So there are many industry leaders that really have set clear targets that do want to support this development. So let's look at the specific case that we have here. Syncreon overall, as a company that is focused on innovation, did reach out to us and say, hey, could we introduce wind turbine into our operations to introduce renewable energy to reduce the carbon footprint? The ideas basically came together with another major telecom company that does want to go the same way. What is the potential impact? As you can see here, it would be roughly a 99% reduction of CO2 emissions for the respective warehouses and accordingly the services that will be provided. So overall, what it will do is really to enable the respective customers of Syncreon to reduce the CO2 emissions and to reduce the balance. That is how the idea started. Well, we have a warehouse, or let's say a manufacturing site, and right next to it we put a turbine. Very, as I would call it now, a very romantic idea. On the other hand, there are others that might not directly like this idea because of having a turbine right nearby. Nevertheless, that can be a specific solution. Here, this is now in the port of Hamburg. It's a customer with our turbines. Nevertheless, it's, as said, it is one idea, and there are others out. And here I would like to introduce to you now the topic of a renewable power purchase agreement. How this basically works is you set up a contract, usually with a utility, with a power producer, with somebody out in the market who will deliver to you the renewable energy in the cycle coming from wind farms, so it is certified renewable, very low carbon emission energy that will be provided against, of course, a payment. The upside of this solution compared to the previously presented solution is really that it does enable scale, it reduces costs, and it ensures stability. Again, going to the specific case, the analysis does show that with the Syncreon operation, when going for all of Europe over to renewable energy through a renewable PPA, is basically it would annually reduce 34,000 tons of CO2. A saving that is one for Syncreon, of course, is for the customers of syncreon, as well as naturally our environment. Now the question, of course, many might think, hey, that sounds very complex, but actually it isn't. By now the wind turbines have grown in scale as much as to realize this one. It actually doesn't need 3 turbines, but the estimates right now are it is 4 turbines that are needed to support the entire operations with renewable energy. Besides that, it is not a lot of products that are needed as well from the process to get there. It is fairly easy. Firstly, set the strategy for your company. Make a clear commitment on sustainability, on what you want to achieve there. Secondly, just create transparency. What is the energy demand that your respective company has or that you provide to your customers? Find the right partners. Just pick partners that you can go with that support you on your vision, on your mission. This, in the end, should then result in you signing a renewable power purchase agreement that guarantees that you will receive all your electricity more or less carbon neutral, or at least with very low carbon emissions. And lastly, you have the solution in place. Basically, you can provide, now speaking to the industry leaders amongst yourselves, it will provide to you carbon neutral logistics or very low carbon emissions. And towards the logistics companies, this is really where, in this case, syncreon makes a big difference in really providing low carbon emission services to us as industry leaders. That being said, I think still many have in mind that sustainability is expensive, renewable energy is expensive, and so on. And yes, there is still a gap, but the gap is getting smaller and smaller. So that means overall, there's a lot of business cases in place that show that it is not only sustainable, but it is as well profitable. All of our companies, in terms of, do not only need to work with a sustainable footprint towards the climate or our environment, but of course as well in the end to our bank accounts. So that's the other part that I can ensure there is a profitable case behind. Let me quickly summarize again. In terms of the solution is really about delivering customer value, the value in this case being really carbon neutral or low carbon emission solutions, through the innovative setup. Value will be provided not only to your own company, but as well to your customers, to your employees, to the shareholders, and lastly, of course, towards the environment. It's my last point, and that's more to urge all of you. It is a basic solution. It is available. We can show that it works well. So if we can do it now, why wait?